It's smaller, lower, more car-like than anything you've seen before from Land Rover, but it does look familiar. And at £50,000 for this top-spec version, it'll have to earn its stripes to attract customers and justify sporting the sacred Range Rover badge, which is boldly sported front and centre. So what do we care about the 2015 Range Rover Evoque Autobiography?
So we've had this vehicle for a few days now on review, and it's taken me a little bit of time to get used to it. Sure, I don't mind the way it looks, very highly spec'd, but I'm a daily Defender driver, so my view of a Land Rover is a little bit different to this. However, it has grown on me. This vehicle sports the green oval, so there is an expectation beyond that of what a normal car would have to do. It needs to be able to get muddy, it needs to be able to go through water, and many other things beside. One thing we do notice with all new Land Rover vehicles is that they all have taken a very aggressive styling stance. Now, the Evoque, when sat next to any of the other vehicles, does sit quite a bit lower. It's actually quite a bit shorter than the old Freelander as well. But the rest of the design details are very similar. I do like this, and I know that many people do, but there is a problem. If you don't like one of the Land Rovers these days, chances are you're not going to like any of them. The Range Rover, Range Rover Evoque, Range Rover Sport and Discovery all share the same design concept. Be interested to see what the Defender looks like when that comes out, and the Discovery Vision. So, looking around the vehicle, there are lots of things which, to be honest, I really don't know how they work. It's just wizardry. You take, for example, the headlights. The headlights on this particular vehicle light up when you go round a corner, so not only in front of you like you normally expect them to, but they do turn a bit. There's also extra lights on the side which show you if you're about to run a cyclist over. Could be useful. Being an autobiography, there are a few extra things that you get. One of them is these tiny little badges on the side here that just says enough. I could spend that extra bit of money. But on the inside is really where you notice the difference. And on this particular one, it's trimmed out in cream to a very high standard with some superb stitching. We see a lot of aftermarket Defender upgrades nowadays from Kahn and Bespoke and even Overfinch, and the work is always really good. But you're just reminded when you come back to a Land Rover vehicle quite how much better it can be. And this really is an exemplary example of quality inside a vehicle. That said, if you're going to get your boots muddy or your dirty trousers, you'll be valeting this quite often. It's full of all sorts of other trickery around it and some sporty touches as well. They put a spoiler on it to, I guess, give you a bit more downforce. And it's not brand new, but we kind of like it. I'd quite like one of these on a Defender. You just touch this and the boot opens by itself. It does close by itself as well. Now, as we ran by the boots, this isn't new, but it is worth noting with the Evoque. There isn't quite as much room in the back as you'd think. It looks quite good, but just standing there looking at it. But actually, when you start loading kit into it, you're a little bit restricted, as you are in most modern cars these days, by the width of the load area. Nonetheless, it can seat 5 people pretty comfortably, and there's a reasonable amount of legroom in the back. And you could get most of your week's shopping in there, if not your golf clubs. When you're buying an autobiography, you're sort of making a bit of a statement to the world. It does come with this extra little badge on there, and there are extra little bells and whistles across the vehicle. Are they necessary? Probably not. Would I like to have them? Yeah, why not? The biggest part of this vehicle was the learning curve required to actually get it going. I think I'm pretty tech savvy, but there's a lot on this. So let's take a look. First off, when you jump inside, it's not a brand new thing, but there are no gear levers. This one is a 9-speed automatic, which it has to be noted, the 9-speed gearbox is fantastic. It pulls well all the time and has a performance of what I would expect a hot hatch, really. As you can see, there are just tons of controls everywhere. And there's some I like, some I'm not so keen on. What they've done in the brand new Range Rover is added this as an option here. It's a funny looking box, but it actually gives you a heads-up display and projects holographically some various bits of information on the screen on the windscreen whilst you're going along. I don't know if I like that or not. It took a little bit of getting used to, but the one thing that I can say about it is it gives you yet another place to view information. So for example, in the Evoque there are 3 places if you want to know how fast you're going. You can use the traditional needle readout. In the centre of the dials is also a digital readout of how fast you're going, and with the heads-up display it tells you again, projected on the windscreen. It's the same with the sat-nav as well. You program the sat-nav from here, but it shows up on the screen here, again in the middle of the clocks and projected up through the heads-up display. That's probably quite useful, but I've yet to come to a favourite of which one I prefer to look at. And whilst we're at it, the sat-nav will get you anywhere and is more reliable than Apple Maps, but I have to say, if you're used to TomTom, Garmin or any of the popular apps that you can get for smartphones these days, the actual interface on the map section here, it's a bit naff. There is something to be said about the complexity of vehicles these days. One of the things that you do really notice is that you really just need an instruction manual to use it. One of the things that we did was actually, when we had this vehicle delivered, was to take it up to the dealership and just get an overview of all the things it can do. If you buy a second-hand Evoque, you really do want to ask the previous owner about how to use everything, because it's not that intuitive. Sure, there are big buttons around everywhere, but on the steering wheel there are so many. Working out what each and every one of them do is quite difficult. And when it comes to the steering wheel, on the Autobiography, you get the option for a heated steering wheel. I'm not a fan of heated seats, many of you out there may be, but a heated steering wheel was really the last thing I ever thought I wanted. That was until it was really cold. As you can probably see, my circulation's quite bad. The heated steering wheel actually is really pleasant on cold mornings. Sure, 10 months of the year you probably won't use it. For those couple of months that you do want it, it's really, really good. Most things on this vehicle are completely automatic now. Automatic lights, so they will come on and off. This isn't a new thing, but what it does have is automatic dipped headlamps. You can switch this off, and I actually opted for that in the end because I found the delay of somebody coming at you whilst you've got your full beams on, they generally flash or get a bit annoyed at you. It also has a pretty smart cruise control where it'll sense the distance for the car in front. Again, this is really good, but you do start to get the feeling, which I've never had using cruise control before, that you don't actually need to even steer. It's kind of like being on the train. A little while ago we drove the Range Rover Evoque Autobiography. That was over £100,000 worth of vehicle, and it was really good. I have to say that at less than half the price, this vehicle really doesn't feel shortchanged. It's got everything. You've got your 3 position memory seats, they're electric, heated and whatever else you need. And the thing that we really like about this vehicle is all the little details. Touch sensitive lighting. It wouldn't have been any more effort to have a little button in there like it would traditionally be. But it's there and we really like it. And the one thing that's great about this vehicle, because it's a bit more squat and feels a bit more closed in, they've put a panoramic sunroof in. You can open and close this, but I opened it as soon as we got the vehicle and I've never shut it, and I don't know why you would want to either. As with all Land Rovers these days, it comes with electric terrain response modes. These do all sorts of different things along the way, and I'm sure you've seen it on other Land Rovers as well. The one I hadn't seen was dynamic. What I'd assumed that meant was you put it on dynamic and it'll just set up the car for whatever you're doing. That's not what it means. The car gets very angry, projects a whole load of red lights, stiffens the suspension and gets you ready to go racing. Most people who own an Evoque will never get its boots muddy and will probably be seen more often at school gates than in any grassland or mud. But you could be assured that the same effort and care has gone into the Evoque to make sure it performs off-road. And if you've been to a Land Rover Experience Centre, the Evoque will do all of the things that the Defender and the Range Rover and the Discovery will do. But this one's not ours, so we will get it a bit muddy. In the spirit of Hibernate, we've come out. It's absolutely freezing this morning. And let's see how it goes.
Getting the Evoque muddy really reminds you of its utilitarian heritage. It handled the different terrains very well and never felt panicked doing it. It's actually great fun to drive and fills you with confidence that it'll get you home no matter what. Sure, the ground clearance is not great, and on this model the low profile tyres are not really designed for this kind of work, but even still, it is a real Land Rover, and one that's worthy of the Range Rover mark.